Welcome to Willow Wind's Home and Garden. Today I'm going to show you guys 5 ways to start a garden for either cheap or free. And one of them is actually a really lazy way that I started doing last year and I'm doing again this year. Lots of times people already have a garden, but they don't actually plant any fruits or vegetables in it. Let me show you what I mean. One of the simplest and easiest ways to start a garden is actually just planting your landscaping. Underneath these bushes, it will provide some part shade, which is perfect for a lot of your plants here in the south. And it's also perfect where you can have your pumpkin, squash, watermelons, even like your cucumbers, tomatoes, all running around growing underneath these bushes and using these bushes as a natural living trellis. Now, let's say though that you don't want to plant in your landscaping, or you can't for whatever reason. Here's the next option. If you don't have an area that really has many grasses or weeds to work around, and if you want just the easiest and simplest option, just mulch it really heavy with like 6 to 12 inches of leaves or wood chips, or even if it's non-herbicide sprayed hay or straw. And you could just dig up a little bit of weeds, like in this instance right here where I took care of this grass line, and then I just layered 3 to 6 inches of leaves right here and have been planting in here since last year. Let's say you wanted to turn like this lawn here into a garden. I would either do a layer of plastic over it, or a tarp I might have, or cardboard. You can usually get it from like a restaurant or grocery stores. They'll sometimes give you all their broken down boxes, and you lay all that down after first watering the whole area well, or right after a good rain, and you're sealing in all that moisture, and you're going to either smother it with the cardboard or you're going to solarize it with the plastic and the tarp options. Now, if you're doing the cardboard option, you can immediately then cover it with compost and leaves, mulch, like wood chips or whatever, and then you're going to plant directly into that compost and just break through that cardboard layer to plant into it. Now, actually, if you don't want to go the route of getting cardboard for free usually, you can get contractor's paper that comes in a huge roll, and you can roll it out over your garden area and do the exact same process. Here's a good example of a mulch bed with a layer of cardboard underneath, and actually you'd almost want this saturated with water before it gets covered with mulch, but at the point of planting, you just take your shovel, do a little X, bend these corners underneath, and you can pop in your transplant and maybe a little bit of compost around it, and you're set to go. It's as easy as that, and by doing this, you're actually making it so that you don't have to water as much, potentially, during the heat of the summer, and this actually will build a lot of organic matter into the soil and help your plants and the fungi and bacteria in the ground to feed your plants in the long term. So if you want one of the most laziest ways to start a garden, you could just plant in the edge of your property or wherever you might have all of your yard waste get dumped. And in the case of right here, this got a huge pile of leaves on it in the fall, right under this tulip tree on the edge. And I planted in last year some tomatoes and cucumbers. They lasted out the whole season, where typically they would die back come mid-season because of our heat and humidity. And like right now there's an elderberry, some horseradish. I'm going to be seeding in some honeydew melons, but there's some sunflowers and even a little cucumber over there that is going to use these Bradford pears as a trellis. And just kind of working with this area, and like let's say you had a compost pile, like I said, just plant in that area, add in maybe like a little bit of compost right around where you're planting, and make sure it's still mulched. The most awesome thing about doing this is I had to only water like once a week because of all of the leaves in the area, and because also this area didn't get a lot of sun. So this probably in the heat of summer only gets about maybe 6 hours of morning sun. And it was perfect for the tomatoes and cucumbers, but it was not too much to make it so that they didn't grow well. Now, one word of caution, it can be super exciting to want to start a garden, and you can have these really large goals and want to have a large area. But I really suggest starting small, because in the past, I've experienced getting burned out where you have way more weeds, way more work, and way more not very happy plants because you went too big in the beginning. And this is just like a traditional garden. One of the best options for a traditional garden setup where you don't actually have any sort of mulch on top of the soil and you're tilling it up is to use cover crops, though. I would highly suggest that, and you just either cover them up so that it kills them out, or sometimes the winter will kill them depending on your area, or you just till them under. And it adds a lot of organic matter and health back into the soil. Some of them are nitrogen fixing cover crops too, where they add nitrogen back in as well. So I hope this video has motivated you guys to potentially plant out in your landscaping or other places that you wouldn't normally think about planting in. And I also want to say thank you so much for getting us to 600 subscribers, and you guys have a great rest of your day.